The smartest nurse knows more about medicine than the dumbest doctor. Remember that because it's going to come up later. I'm going to say something controversial. I like the legacy media, which is surprising because literally nobody likes the legacy media. Seems like you can't go 5 seconds online without somebody bashing on the mainstream media for this reason or for that reason. They're by blah, 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 blah. Nobody likes them. From Joe Rogan to Hassan Piker, the hate is universal. And this is concerning because the press is like the most important check on the government and everything else. That's why it's in the First Amendment, baby. And a lot can be said about Trump and his antics, from demonizing journalists to suing publications he doesn't like and not believing fact checkers. Which, by the way, this idea that all fact checkers are biased against Republicans is just obviously not true. If you have 2 teams playing football, Team 1 and Team 2, and the referee is constantly calling fouls against Team 2, but not many for Team 1, so you get another referee, but you get the same pattern of more fouls against Team 2, but not many for Team 1, so you get another referee, but you get the same pattern, and then you get another referee, and then another referee, and then another referee. At some point, you have to accept that Team 2 just commits more fouls than Team 1. There's no way that all of these referees are biased against Team 2 instead of Team 1. There's no way. If all the fact checkers are saying the Republicans, and Trump specifically, lie more than Democrats, it's very unlikely that all of these fact checkers, all of these politics referees, they're all biased against one party inexplicably. It's more likely that Republicans are just lying sacks of shit. Anyways, back on topic. Why do people hate the legacy media? A lot of this has to do with the rise of politics influencers. Now that everyone with a smartphone and an internet connection can reach millions of people on TikTok or YouTube from the inside of their cars, which incidentally, more people in the world have access to a smartphone than they do a working toilet, but I don't know. I don't want to bash on these people too hard because what the hell am I doing? Bit hypocritical, innit? Generally speaking, random people don't make better reporters than actual journalists who went to journalism school. Are there exceptions? Yes. In the same way that the smartest nurse knows more about medicine than the dumbest doctor. I would trust someone like Hank Green, for example, career YouTuber, writer, smart guy, more than random journalist number 821. But the vast majority of these politics influencers aren't like these super smart nurses that know more about medicine than actual doctors. At best, they're average nurses, and the average doctor is always going to know more than the average nurse. Mainstream media journalists are the doctors in this analogy, and politics influencers are the nurses, if that wasn't clear. You can trust that a legacy media reporter knows a good amount about history. They have to take an ethics course in college. The real journalists are accountable to their peers, all of which also went to professional journalism school and try to follow a code of ethics, and you simply do not get that with alternative media. Take alternative media figure Tim Pool, for example. Tim Pool was paid millions by Russia through a shell company called Tenet Media to spread pro-Russia, anti-Ukraine talking points in the United States of America.
Ukraine is the enemy of this country. Ukraine is our enemy, being funded by the Democrats. I will stress this again. One of the greatest enemies of our nation right now is Ukraine. We should rescind all funding and financing, pull out all military support, and we should apologize to Russia.
I cannot understate how insane it is that an American adversary, the American adversary, Russia, was paying Tim Pool millions of dollars in the United States to promote pro-Russia talking points through like 1 degree removed. Let me be clear, allegedly Tim Pool didn't realize it was Russian money, but if you actually read into the details of the case, it's pretty obvious that something fishy is going on here, and a real journalist would want to know who's signing their checks, but Tim Pool just didn't do his due diligence, even though it's pretty obvious that something fishy was going on here, and it turned out to be the American adversary paying him millions of dollars. Anyways, in a sane world, if Tim Pool was an actual journalist instead of alternative media, he would be called out by his peers, probably lose his job, and rightfully be laughed out of the room every time he opened his mouth. But in the alternative media sphere, there aren't any real checks on Tim Pool. So long as he has his audience, he can just carry on without integrity. For a left-wing example, in a sane world, Hassan Piker wouldn't be taken seriously by any journalist ever. The fact that both Hassan and Tim Pool are the main sources of news for a lot of people is deeply concerning. It's also just cool to hate on the mainstream media these days. You get a lot of internet cred from doing it. It's almost a rite of passage for both the right and left. The mainstream media lies. The mainstream media is corrupt. The mainstream media pushes a narrative. On the flip side, if you defend the legacy media, everyone calls you a shill. Open the comments under this video if you want to take a look. And while you're down there, like and subscribe. I'm not saying that the mainstream media is perfect. It isn't. But it's a billion, trillion times better than alternative media. 100%. Doctors are better than nurses the overwhelmingly vast majority of the time. Now, why do I think legacy news is good? I also just want to be clear. Independent, actual journalists in some plucky small town doing what they can to investigate things with integrity and grace. They're amazing. I support you. You're great. My problem is with the politics influencer reporter, live streaming YouTuber, TikTokers. I don't like that these fuck-ass, no integrity, no knowledge politics influencers are the main source of news for a lot of people while stylizing themselves as better than the mainstream media. The reason they're not is working for CNN, working for the New York Times, working for even Fox News. There is some level of competency, there is some level of integrity that you have to adhere by, and you're under a lot more scrutiny. You've got your boss for one, and more importantly, every single one of your peers. If there really was top-down pressure at one of these legacy news stations to like, oh, let's target this one group of people specifically, real journalists, like the kind that went to school for it, would call it out. By the way, I'm specifically excluding news pundits, your Anderson Coopers, your Rachel Maddow's, your Sean Hannity's. These people are there to give their opinions. I'm glazing reporters that do news. Back to YouTube, TikTok. If a political influencer gets called out, there's no journalistic integrity. There's no going point by point to prove yourself or reflecting on how you goofed up. Joe Rogan gets called out and he just shrugs it off. There's no real accountability. There's no well-respected group of his peers that can come to a consensus opinion. So long as he has his audience, it doesn't matter. He can just keep spreading vaccine misinformation into the sunset. Is legacy news perfect? No, but it is better than the alternative. So what now? Do we tell people to stop watching TikTok news and read an article like God intended? Yes, but that's not likely to work because the cat's already out of the bag. Anyone with a smartphone and some algorithm luck can reach millions of people, spreading whatever nonsense conspiracy they want. No, what we need is less of the weirdos in these spaces and more of the good ones in these spaces. Dave Jorgensen, former Washington Post journalist and current YouTube reporter, for example, he seems pretty solid doing the news on the YouTube shorts, plus he got that important journalism degree. Philip DeFranco, otherwise known as the False Stay in the Loop guy, he's good. The Ezra Klein show's good. TLDR News is a faster, better way of YouTubeifying the news. Good people like this in these spaces can legitimately make a difference. I'll do my best as a politics guy to have integrity, to have honor, to respond to legitimate criticism, to try to cultivate an audience that holds me accountable, and to respond to criticism that is valid, and apologize for my mistakes if they do come up. But aside from that, that's it. See ya.